Hello everybody, and I hope you're doing well. Now, I thought what I'd do is, yes, we've just had the spotlights released for Cassie Lang and also for future Antman, but what I wanted to do is pick out certain things from their abilities and their kit that I think are going to be very, very impressive, potent, or fun for players. A lot of the time when you've got new champions coming into Marvel Contest of Champions, they're either like hits or misses when it comes to abilities, and as well, some people may be searching for the kit. I'm sure that what Kabam go, oh, we'll put these nodes together, and you're like, okay, well, I've got a champion to interact with this, and it can be quite fun. But it's just seeing whether or not these two champions have anything in their kit that could be dramatically helpful, fun, or everything else that could be really, really effective. And as well, kind of look to be the go-to champions for certain things. Whether or not it's got a powerful science, powerful tech, let's have a look at it. There's some things right off the bat that Cassie Lang really impresses for me, especially because you can switch from doing a heavy attack, shrinking down to avoid all attacks for a limited time. I assume this will be like miss. It does say as part of the kit up here that miss is part of the champion's kit, and I would say that's going to be it. This is really cool because it can be like that. I'm not saying it's Kitty Pryde 2.0. I shouldn't say that just yet. I haven't played with the champion, so I can't come to that assessment. But definitely when you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, am I going to get clapped by a special attack, or I need like a moment in time where a very quick special attack is snapped at me, I can have a utility to then save myself for any damage. It does look like you might be able to take a stun on yourself if you're not careful, which I kind of get. But one of the other things I like about the champion is also immunities. Casey, like her father, has immunity to shock and poison effects, but unique to her is buff immunity as well as power steal. This is really good because it kind of throws the champion into different kind of things if you're looking for an option for like some variant 1, and as well looking for options for things like an Alliance War node. I'm not saying like there is 100% a node that is very much reminiscent of this one, but here's a good example. There is a node, where is it? Here's it. The hazard shift, shock and bleed. If there's a hazard shift, shock and poison, for example, that may not be actually called that one, but if there's a shift debuff node that is poison and shock, that is like a double bubble W right there for you getting yourself a champion that can deal with a situation like that. Could be something in Act 8.2 in the future, it could be Act 8.3, could be whatever content Kabam throw out, but at least gives you an example and an option. The same way that you could go like, right, well, if there's a new meta of Battlegrounds, this could be a good counter for it. The signature ability of Cassie seems cool as well, especially if you're able to be immune to power steal. It kind of adds a little bit more value. Now, look, whether it's like power stealing in general or power burning, so you can still be power burned, but power stealing can be quite important, especially if the champion's looking to ramp up to like an SP3. So that could be something that's quite important, because if you get SP3'd by Cassie, it's a bit of a problem if she's a defender for it. Power stings have their stack limited, increased by 10, rounded down. Cassie gains 9% chance to evade her opponent's attacks, so that can be annoying if it's proccing in the same way that say other champions are. When Cassie evades her, she inflicts Power Sting debuff, lasting 14 seconds and dealing a burst of 920.4 direct damage if the opponent launches a special attack. I kind of think that if this champion throws debuffs, this meta, this upcoming Season 5 meta, if she's throwing things like Power Stings, poisons, and other things just by going and attacking her, or kind of interacts with stuff. If there's I'm not saying that players are going to have a 200 signature one off the bat, but what I'm saying is if there's like whales out there that have kind of like been able to kind of like put a substantial version out there, it could be a bit of a problem. So it could be a good defensive option down the line for some of the meta that we'll see in Season 5. But I definitely think this champion's similar to the likes of Kitty Pryde. If you have a problem with champions throwing special attacks at you and you're kind of like, well, I'm not quite sure if like I want to be aggressive, passive and stuff, but I don't want to take any damage, especially because an enemy is going to have an unblockable special. So imagine a really decent counter for unblockable special attacks being thrown at you. You can just go into the heavy attack charging or kind of throwing it, or the kind of the process, and it's like you will not get hit. So unavoidable special attacks could really be seen to be countered with this type of champion, the same way that we've got other ones, Ghost or Kitty Pryde, this one, Strife, and so many others. So this is really cool. One final thing to mention about Cassie is the quick access to damage. Now, this is cool because if you want to have fights kind of shorter fights over quicker, maybe longer fights that kind of like are more potent for damage. On the SP3, you can inflict a crush debuff lasting 10 seconds for the rest of the fight. Cassie becomes furious and grows in size. This cannot be triggered multiple times, which is a problem, so that's one disadvantage. But the advantage is being furious grants Cassie the following abilities. An indefinite fury passive, increasing the attack rating by 920.4, physical resistance, and also duration of all power stings is increased by 20%, which is part and parcel of the kit that needs to be done in order to kind of ramp up the champion more effectively and do the damage required. So yeah, that is kind of like some positive stuff to kind of say about the champion. And yeah, just having looked at it, a lot of fun. It just will be down to players to interact with it and see, is this going to be a champion that's for you? Next up is Antman Future. This, again, is another interesting character, especially because it has ease and quick of access to things like armor up buffs. Like start the fight with 1 nano armor up buff. With recent metas of Season 4 of Battlegrounds, imagine if this champion was available for that. This would be very annoying. And if that meta ever comes back, then this again could be like quite annoying. Not that you need like say like, oh, we'll start off and get armor up buffs and then it's part and parcel of the fight. But what I'm saying is that like, you know, if you even start with like 1 armor up buff, or the ease of access, again, like if we're going to scroll down right here, like hitting into the opponent during their heavy attack grants 1 nano armor up buff. Each hit glances Antman gain 1 nano armor up buff. Attacks that intercept Antman cannot glance and remove 1 nano armor up buff. Well, that's how you remove it. But the armor up buff kind of acquisition just seems to be like more easy to do. Whenever a nano armor up buff fails to trigger or is removed for any reason, replace it with a passive of the same potency. So even like if we're talking like non effects, like it's just going to be, it's just really good for that particular interaction. And Antman's personal abilities are not removed by armor break effects, so you might have to kind of look down a different route like stagger, for example, or nullify in order to kind of remove them, but you have to be very kind of potent and quick with them. And I guess this can be like backed up about the meta side of things. If you look at that, if this was in, as you can see here, like while Surging Swarm, while Antman has 5 more armor up buffs, his Surging Swarm activates grants the following effects. So imagine if the attack rating interacted with the armor up buff and interacted with the Season 4 meta, you would be doing a lot of damage. I'm so glad this champion wasn't available for that, because if it was a defensive option, it would be a defensive nightmare. Encroaching power detonation expires 200% faster. The opponent is more aggressive, while Surging Swarm is active. So we'll probably see that this month. When the opponent's combo ender glances, inflict a stun debuff for 1.5 seconds. That can be quite annoying. I think one thing that will be massive about this champion is how potent the power control elements are for this. At the start of each fight, an encroaching power detonation passive for 14 seconds, which cannot be affected by ability accuracy. Upon expiry, drain 40% of their current power and inflict a power detonation passive for 18 seconds. Whenever the effect expires for any reason, re-inflict the encroaching power detonation. This is good as well for certain situations, whether or not it's an alliance wars, whether or not it's the all or nothing node, power gaining champions. This can be very effective in interaction. Am I going to necessarily take the champion against the likes of Vision Arcus? Probably not, but definitely I'd be looking at something, a decent power control element from a tech-based champion, which, let's face it, a lot of tech-based champions have power control within their kit. This one goes a little bit further and beyond, because it will punish any power and will definitely do direct damage. It's going to be potent back to any kind of defender, which, hey, I like that. Because the champion is very easy to use, it's very quick access to power control, and that again is really important for me. If you do an SP1, you want to be able to power control. Doing an SP2 may take a little bit of time to do, and you may need to get to that SP1 quicker in order to punish for it, especially as the final hit does not grant power and drains 25% of a bar of power for each disintegration debuff on the opponent, but also 50% potency disintegration debuff, dealing X amount of direct damage over 24 seconds and pausing during Antman's special attacks. The SP2, on the other hand, is, and as developer note says, each hit inflicts 10% potency instant disintegration, dealing X amount of damage, and dealing and this ability is 100% potency for each disintegration debuff for the opponent. So that kind of like, again, we're all about power control. punishing this. Now, there are plenty of champions that that do that particular ability, but I think that this is going to come into its own as a very important tech champion. Let's face it, when you go in Marvel Contest of Champions and go to various different types and places of the game, there's going to be certain nodes, there's going to be certain champions that are going to build power quickly. Purgatory, maybe Doctor Doom, depending on the interaction. The list goes. There's so many that you could pick from that gains power, either nodes or champions. But look, here is the facts that this could be a really cool option to kind of really clamp down on enemies building power and suppressing them, and being persistent as well with this. Now, this is where I am really sold on Antman future, and it's just based on the signature ability. I really want to I want to get one, and then I want to awaken one and take it to 200 signature. Why? There's certain things that I like in game at the moment. I like my Hulkbuster because he's got that regeneration. Same thing with Guillotine 2099, and there's a few other champions as well. That self-repair, that keeping yourself alive in the game, that's really important, more so when you go from fight to fight. But additional interaction when it comes to incoming bleed and incinerate effects suffer minus 10 to 90% duration. That's really important because that's like bleed on, gone. Incinerate on, gone. It's like, you will get the debuff on you, but it'll be gone like substantially, like more, it'll be quicker, it'll be gone. And especially with certain interactions against certain champions, and whether or not you're interacting with, like, even suicide masteries. I can't remember, is it bleed or is it poison? One of the two that kind of like goes off quickly. Whether or not it's something to do with that makes it suicide friendly or not. Yeah, sorry, I had a bit of a mind melt there. I was thinking to myself about Double Edge and thinking like, oh, poison that keeps on constant. So you could literally make this, I'm not saying it is super suicide mastery friendly, but at least it mitigates the damage that you take from Double Edge on this. And I'd definitely be excited to test that around with that when, if I get an opportunity to play around with the champion. And also it says here, when a bleed or incinerate effect, including instant effects, expires naturally on Antman, gain a non-stacking self-repair buff dealing 1 to 3% of missing health over 6 seconds. Self-repair buffs are lost when Antman is stunned, so don't get stunned. When Antman would lose more than 10% of his maxed health from a single source other than special attack 3, reduce damage to 10% of his maxed health, gain a self-repair. Again, this is helpful. I don't know if this is, it doesn't say like once per fight as well. So this could be more of like so this is more of a constant thing. I love this. I think this is fantastic. And what can I say? Antman's signature ability makes him considerably more survivable. He gains near immunity to bleed and incinerate effects, and his ability to be protected against burst damage, such as direct damage dealt by Galen's Harvest. Fantastic. You know, as I said, this is something that I like, and I think a lot of players are going to like as well. As being a massive King Groot fan, survivability is key. Options and champions for things like incursions and interacting with certain different areas. And as I said, interacting with Double Edge does make this a very desirable champion for me personally. May not for other people, but I would like to 200 I would get it first of all, awaken and 200 signature at some stage, so I might kind of prepare for that one. I'm pretty invested for this. I think this is going to be a really decent tech-based champion, and Kabam done a great job with this. Oh look, Cypher Gaming. Hello, you've made the cut of the video. I would mention the synergies of these champions, but I like to really look at them as you know, centrally solo based kind of like playing champions. I'm sure there's going to be synergies like adding in for the Antman future Cable or Bishop, because you know you get a prowess effect, which is only going to like increase damage. So yeah, gain a prowess effect, gain a armor up buff. So when the opponent, excuse me. I would as well talk about synergies, but I think this is what I wanted to talk about is what difference they make for on an individual level. And I think these two really make a difference. Of the two, I'm more excited for future Antman. I just kind of think there's some really kind of interesting elements of the kit which kind of feel like it could change the way that I look at my mastery setup, and whether or not I want to switch to have a suicide mastery with Double Edge going off quicker, as stated by Kabam. It's a good kind of like way to go and look at this one. And also Kabam say about collar tech. Not taking anything away from Cassie Lang. She does look good, she sounds good, and she looks like she could do a lot of potency and damage. It's just a case of I like that survivability element. It's just something that with this current crazy climate with MCOC, if something goes wrong, it's always good to have that backup of a champion that's going to have your back as well. If there's a dropped input or, you know, something goes wrong, you make a mistake. So yeah, that's been a video. Thank you very much for watching. Check out some other content which will be located on screen right now. Which one do you like the most? Put it in the comment section down below, and I'll see you all soon. Bye bye.